What is up, gang? Welcome back to the Phoenix Mercury podcast. I am your host, Erika L. Day. I would say I'm super stoked to be here, but our producer and great friend of the show, Shane Diefenbach, would tell you that that would be a lie. I am less than satisfied with the results of this game. Obviously, the Phoenix Mercury took a big fat L, 101-88 with the Minnesota Lynx. Sorry if you can hear my dogs barking in the background. Quite frankly, they're just as upset as I am. Yes, Mike, we are in, and I have lots of comments, concerns, thoughts to share. But first, again, shout out to all of you guys in the comments who have been hanging out. I know I'm running a little late, but I am super stoked to be here. Chloe, to address the comment, let's just talk about it. You know, I see you got some comments on BG's rebounding. And frankly, I just want to start there because, you know, the Phoenix Mercury have been getting out rebounded all season, and tonight is the one night that they did not. And so I will absolutely not let that be the narrative of today. What I will let be the narrative is the numbers. So Shane, if you could just show us the numbers from today's game against the Minnesota Lynx. I'm going to run through those real quick. Obviously, you know, Shane was sending me these, and we thought the free throw percentage was actually the 3-point percentage. So I can just say I'm a little thankful at this point that the Mercury did, in fact, shoot 51.5% from the field, 10 for 14 from the free throw line. But obviously, the part that really hurt was the 15 turnovers and shooting 30% from three, comparatively to the Lynx, who shot 50% from the field, 23 of 27 from the free throw line, and only 7 turnovers and 10 for 26 from from three. Listen, the turnovers really told the story of today's game, and I'm going to be honest. 5 of those 15 turnovers are from Collier Copper, and yes, like Chris said, it was giveaway buckets, and it was really tough to watch at a lot of times. And I see some comments, you know, do we feel Nate is to blame? I'm not going to say so right now, but at the same time, it's really tough when you watch a team that is super capable of winning games like this. And again, 15 turnovers and 5 of them from your leading scorer, not exactly setting you up to win this game. And Mike, I'm not solo the whole show. Stephen is just finishing up the post-game pressers, and we're going to get some words from him. You know, and Chloe, I see your comments. I'm sick of these threes. Like, how many empty possession do we have to have because of these threes? Listen, if you guys remember right, early in the season, Phoenix Mercury were one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league. They were, I believe, leading the league in threes at one point. And early, it really kind of felt like it was going to be a live or die by the three moment. And it's kind of what happened tonight. They just obviously did not fall. We had a couple of big shots from Sophie and Kalia. Even Tosh at points really got it going for the Mercury. They took the lead into the second quarter, which has not been a story of the Mercury this season. And so I had really good feelings. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know I did everything I possibly could in terms of good luck today to make this happen for the Phoenix Mercury. In fact, some of you may know that I wanted to go to Minnesota, but I refused to let fate win. And unfortunately, fate did win. But as Chloe Miller says in the comments, Mac Truck did eat. And we could have foreseen that happening today with Mac Truck's career 10 points off the bench. Oh, I'm sorry, 12 points. I'm lying. I saw Mac Truck on my way to work today, and I knew that Miss Natasha Mack was going to have a very good game. Yeah, Mom, I do need to take a breath, but I will not be doing that. Lots to say on today's game, and I'm waiting for Stephen. So I'm going to get it all out while I can. But yes, as Sean Sellers says, I'm not going to drill too much on this Beck Allen injury because, quite frankly, we've drilled it all since the Olympic break. But Beck Allen would have made a massive difference today. Quite frankly, I don't even know how I haven't mentioned this, but how in the world do you defend 42 points from Napheesa Collier. You simply can't. And there were so many shots where there were hands in her face, hands on the ball, for crying out loud, and the shot just still goes in. Billy Gringo, I would love a neutral actually at this point. So if anyone has any hookups on the neutral, hit a girl up. Because I don't need a hookup on the neutral. I'll see neutral on Saturday, bright and early, for the Utah-Arizona football game. I did take a breath, you guys, right there. So you guys can stop moaning about that in the comments. They regressed late in the season. Don't know who else to blame but the coach. Listen, the Olympic break had a very, very negative impact on this team, and I think that is still kind of the story here. They're tired. They're on tired legs, and they have been since the Olympic break. Collier has just not been the same. If you guys watched our last show, 8 of her 9 30-plus point games came before the Olympic break, and that's not to say Collier hasn't been just that girl, period, all season. But that being said, in a game where your leading scorer only scores 13 points. In fact, let's just go down the nut cut here. Tosh Cloud, who we needed a big game out of today with her 16 points. I mean, she had 10 assists as well, another double-double. But we needed more from Collier, and we needed more from Diana, and we needed more from Sophie, and we did not get what we needed out of those players. I'm looking at these comments right now. Yes, I blame the USA for these struggles. No, Cheryl Miller, I'm coming for your kneecaps. No, and you're talking to the wrong Cheryl, Chloe. It's Cheryl Reeves that you're talking to. So, make sure you get it, correct. But Essie, it's not as if there's a funeral. It's actually pretty loud and lively in here because I'm alone and I'm trying to make myself entertained with this loss. But needless to say, like I said earlier, the turnovers really told the story of this game. In prior games, we could have told the story and more possessions were given to the opposing team, but unfortunately that just wasn't the case tonight. The Phoenix Mercury had more possessions. They just didn't take advantage of them and score. And so, and when, again, I can probably repeat myself on this all day long, but 5 turnovers from Collier Copper and 15 of them all coming from your bench, not going to win. To answer Michael's comment, is Chloe always this upset? No, Mike, we're just upset because the Phoenix Mercury have lost a winnable basketball game and we deserve to be back in the Footprint Center on Friday. I meant Cheryl Reeves. Congratulations. Now we know that it's Cheryl Reeves. To go through these comments, though, a lot of you guys are pretty mad, and I do understand why. The regression late in the season does hurt. I love BG, but she doesn't play with her heart. I'm going to be honest. I knew that there were going to be some BG hate comments tonight, and I just won't stand for them. She was the leading scorer tonight for the Phoenix Mercury. 24 points, 2 blocks, only 5 rebounds, and I know you guys are going to say, she's 6'9". We need more. We need more. But unfortunately, it's not just about height. It's all about a lot more than just height. And so I'm not going to let, that be the entire story of today's game. The reality is that the team needs to team rebound. And Jason, you're actually wrong. That video's been out for like 5 years. So anyways, but shout out to you guys for being in the chat with me tonight when I'm alone. I really appreciate you guys for that. There's some news for you guys, though. And I do want to talk about the fact that PHNX has done the X Factor a real solid today. And while we don't get to celebrate a win, we do get to celebrate the release of a new collection from PHNX. And as you guys know, I mean, the Diana Taurasi goat shirt is probably the best shirt in PHNX's locker, but that new orange goat shirt, are we serious? When I saw that, I just about passed out and needed to be put into a straitjacket. Unfortunately, they haven't sent these out to me yet, so I don't have them yet. But I do know that when I do have them, they're going to look really cool, and it would be pretty fire if we all matched in these shirts together. So you can head over to gophnx.com, hit up the locker, get one of these sick ass shirts. I'm actually not sure if I'm still allowed to say that word on this show. So Shane, if I am not, I'm really, really sorry. But yes, the link for the shirts is in the comments, and you can hit up that store.com, store.allcitynetwork.com/collections/merch for PHNX Mercury fans. Pretty cool shirt. Oh, I just got word that I'm good to say that word. So thank God. I'm sorry, you guys. Mike, I'm not buying you the shirt. I think you should just buy yourself the shirt. Why would I buy you the shirt? I bought the Smelly Rating Seattle shirt for you, and it didn't pay off for me in the dividends I thought it would. So, yeah, I think you should buy yourself the shirt. If Diana comes back, she needs to come back not a max contract. We need to bring someone in free agent for our future. And listen, I would agree with you, except you kind of say that as if Diana's on a max contract right now and she isn't. So that being said, like, yes. But I haven't really wanted to speculate much about, the retirement just because it has felt so up in the air. But if this is it, I just want to take a moment to say what an honor it was to watch her foul out of her last game. I think that is really, really hilarious and full circle. Period. End of story. I'm pretty thankful that we got that last little piece of attitude from the face of the franchise for the last 20 years. And so, like the banner says, period. Drop a like for Diana and the last 20 years she spent in the Valley. I see some questions about the Rookie of the Year, Caitlin Clark, and I will not be addressing those in today's show. So that's all I have to say about that. But when she does actually announce retirement, you guys are right. We are going to have to need a little retirement party, maybe up in Phoenix, maybe at the Chicken and Pickle. Maybe I could convince those guys to hold that. Oh, Mike's mad that I won't address the Caitlin Clark comment. And Mike, I'm sorry, but when was the last time you heard of a number one round draft pick getting traded in the year after her draft? I don't foresee that happening. So, period. Did you guys? Yes, Leah, the Nike tribute was epic. And, let's just take, I don't have a slay of the day today, do I? I didn't send this to Shane. So I guess the slay of the day is going to be the Nike tribute for her career, because quite frankly, it was, if you haven't seen it, go look now, period. More questions in the comments. Anyways, how can we trade for Angel Reese? We need a 4. And, there's only three players under contract for next year: Collier, Natasha Cloud, and Beck Allen. There's a lot of questions about Beck Allen's return, quite frankly, from myself only, maybe. And 43 is no different than 42. So if she's going to come back, with the embarrassment of riches, as we've so loved to call it all season, bring her back. And that free agency is going to be the craziest thing to hit the WNBA because of all the expansion, because of the new CBA coming out. Stephen and I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but you're going to be seeing a lot, and I do mean a lot, of 1-year deals this season and then even next season. I don't want to start any rumors, but how do we get Adia as an assistant to help with the defense? Honestly, Sheer, that might be the best idea you've had all day. I'm not going to say it was a perfect idea, but quite honestly, if you are on the Wildcat show, you know that Adia loves the defense. So if we can get her on the coaching staff, which we might need with all of these available coaching positions within the WNBA, we might have to fill some of these assistant coaching spots. I'm looking at you, Christy Tolliver. But just to kind of go through some of the free agents that I think would be super beneficial to the Phoenix Mercury: Satu Sabali, yes. But also the user, whoever user is, Gabby Williams, yes. And if you watch this show, you know how I feel about Gabby Williams. You know how both of us felt about Gabby Williams early. And unfortunately, the Phoenix Mercury fumbled the bag and let her go to the Seattle Storm. Both teams got swept in the first round. But yes, and to follow up user, I would also love to know the expansion draft rules, because frankly, it could be any type of way. I've got Dallas Wings fans in here. Back off Satu. Listen, how am I supposed to back off Satu? Why would I want to back off that? I need to push the agenda of players I want. So Kelsey Plum, Satu, Gabby Williams, catch me talking about that quite a lot in the in the off season. And then Chris, to follow up, if D is off the starting 5, she's on the clipboard. Coach D, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't be shocked if we see Coach Diana in some way, shape, or form, whether it's here in the Phoenix, Valley area or somewhere up in Connecticut, DT is already coaching low key. And Mike, can we get Kelsey Plum? I'm going to be honest. I think it's a possibility. Do I think it's going to be? Do I think? Am I spilling any tea here? No, but I have done the trade machine over and over and over again, and it would work. Is all I'm going to say, and it would be great for the Valley. Kelsey Plum would be as Matthew says in the comments, a perfect replacement for Diana. For real. She would be a fantastic face of the franchise. DT in LA. Andy, why would DT go to LA? I don't think that is going to happen, but I guess I like the thought. I want Natasha. Mimi Moo, which Natasha are we talking about? Because we actually have 2 Natashas on this team. We need a rebound. Oh, are you talking about Natasha Howard from the Wings? In which case, we're going to have more Wings fans telling us to back off. But nonetheless, also a possibility. Back to tonight's game, though. Kind of back to Napheesa Collier. 42 points. How do you defend that? 40. What more can I say about Napheesa? I said it in the game, in the series preview. I needed this team to stop Napheesa a little bit, but at the end of the day, Napheesa is going to get hers, and that's just kind of the reality of that situation. And so to watch her put up 42 points, you kind of just hope that nobody else on her team scores any points, and that didn't happen. So yeah. You guys are falling asleep in the comments, and I don't really appreciate that. Y'all are letting my mom go to bed, and I don't like that. So I'm going to take a moment to say thank you to our good friends over at Empire Flooring. Michael, Luke in the chat, he's got a cool house. I'm not a homeowner, but Michael is. And so Michael can go online to empiretoday.com/PHNX. He can hit up their new floor visualizer, take a picture of his living room, upload that bad boy, and see what his new Empire flooring is going to look like in his living room. And frankly, if you want to be cool like Mike Luke, you got to have Empire flooring in your living room. You got to get those $350 off your new floors, courtesy of PHNX. So go to empiretoday.com/PHNX, hit up their super, super cool floor visualizer, talk to their personalized in-home consultants, and get that $350 off of your new floors. Mike Luke, I bet Tedwardo does love Empire. You love to throw him under the bus for scrapping up your house and doing things he's not supposed to on your floors. So I'm sure you've had to replace your floors using Empire flooring quite a lot in the last couple of years. Chloe Miller says, I would like Kelsey Mitchell or KP, Kelsey Plum. Sound off in the comments. If you only get one or the other, Kelsey Mitchell or Kelsey Plum, who are you taking? Tell me now. I would like to know. Dylan says, bring in Sabally and Williams. Try to get Bree Jones from Connecticut as our center. Resign DT on a friendly deal. BG can stay on a small deal or retire. And this is something I've talked about, especially later in the season. Everyone wants to talk about Diana's retirement, but frankly, I think Griner's retirement means as much, if not more, to this franchise than DT's. And I think that it's going to be a really, really sad day for the X Factor when BG does retire. Oh, players are up now. Stephen is coming, you guys, soon. No worries. You're not going to be stuck with just myself for much longer. But yes, Kate, Matthew in the comments, everyone kind of agrees that KP is the move. And I kind of agree with you. I have some scenarios worked out in my head. I think Kelsey Plum would be a perfect fit, especially considering you have the point guard that you have in Natasha Cloud. I just think the dog-eat-dog mentality with KP, Tosh Cloud, Kalia Copper, and Sophie Cunningham, who's also re-signed for this team, I think it would be a pretty sick squad. And I'm going to be honest, I know that we have Natasha Cloud on our team, and a lot of people would love to think that Elena Belladon is going to come here because of that. I don't foresee Elena ever playing basketball again. I don't know how you can take this much time off of professional basketball at the level that they're playing right now and come back unscathed a year later. I appreciate you guys for saying you dig solo Erika in the comments, but I haven't really taken a breath in like 19 minutes. And like Esty says, we need the voice of calm. She means added to the team, but I mean added to the show. And Stephen is going to come here and he's going to make all of us feel a lot better. He's going to break down all the math and basically just make it sound like it's not the end of the world, although unfortunately it is the end of the season. This ought to be good, guys. Sheer is in the comments saying he's going to be serious. So I'll be waiting on that. But Billy says Stephen is a genius like me, so I have a soft spot for him. I'll be honest, same here. I'm not a genius, so I have a soft spot for him because he is good at the things I am not, which is mainly math. So Chloe says not math time. And, you know, you're probably right about that. Sheer, we can't get Diana Bonner back. Plus, she's not going to leave her wife on the Connecticut Sun. But Nneka Ogwumike would absolutely be a dream Phoenix Mercury player. That being said, I joked about this in the last show, but it seems these days like the pros feel like college recruiting in a sense, specifically like with the Storm forming this sort of super team up north. It kind of felt like Nneka, SDS, and, you know, and even Gabby Williams to a certain extent got together and were like, let's make a super team. And then they just threw a dart on the map and Seattle is just where they landed. And like Mimi Moo says, you know, Diana tried getting Nneka and it doesn't always work out, you know? And so, like I said, Diana Bonner is a good thought, but the ex-Phoenix Mercury probably will not be returning to the Valley considering, you know, she plays with her wife for the Connecticut Sun. And like Matthew said, you know, she's good in Connecticut. She's happy there. But I do find it hilarious that my interest in women's basketball has made Jason Shear become a women's basketball or WNBA scout. I think that is a really full circle moment for PHNX as a whole, I'll be honest. And like Chloe says, we miss DB here in the Valley. She was just here. Chloe got to see her. Actually, I'm a liar. Chloe did not get to see her. I'm so sorry, Chloe. Esty says, I've become a Sun fan, so don't touch their roster. I'm sorry, but after watching the Connecticut Sun beat the Phoenix Mercury 3 times this season, can't relate. So I guess that's just you, Esty. But nonetheless, sound off in the comments about where you watched the game. Obviously, this is going to be not our last show of the season, but it sounded like Shane was going to say something right there. I don't know if I was just hearing myself. But sound off about where you watched all of this season from. I know Chloe tuned in from Atlanta. So if she can be as locked in from Atlanta as she was, you can be locked in from wherever you are. We could get AT and DB together. No. Alyssa Thomas and Diana Bonner are Connecticut Sun, in my opinion, till retirement. Shout out to Mimi Moo for being here from New Zealand. I'll be honest, that is kind of making Chloe look undercommitted. But don't let Chloe hear that. Don't let Chloe hear that. DB's also 37. Yes. And to just put this lightly, a lot of the Phoenix Mercury's core are getting a little bit older, so they do need to bring in some younger talent, which is probably specifically why the biggest reason I like the Kelsey Plum ideal so much is because she is young. She's got a lot of her career left. In my opinion, she hasn't hit her peak yet. She gets better every single offseason. And so to see her come to the Valley would really, really, for lack of a better term, suit my fancy. Mimi Moo says Connecticut is boring and does not have the amenities that the Mercury does. I'll be honest, you guys, nobody in the league has the facilities that the Phoenix Mercury have. We have a brand new $100 million practice facility. Even the Aces facility doesn't compare to. Period. As my shirt says. Oh, wrong. Mike is back, everybody. Thank goodness. And Esty, let's talk about the rookies for a second, because we did get to see one thing that Erika was super excited to see in this game, and that is a masked Celeste Taylor. And I'm going to have to haunt the Phoenix Mercury social team for not giving us a picture. Unfortunately, I'm not in Minnesota, so I couldn't take it myself. But it was tough. It was very, very tough. And in her 17 minutes, she got 3 assists, 2 points, and 2 rebounds. Not the most productive game for her, but we've talked at great deal about how her offensive deficiencies are made up for on the defensive end, and I still feel that way. Tonight, I think that this is going to be a big offseason for Celeste Taylor, and the Phoenix Mercury would be silly gooses to let her go to another team, period. End of story. Mimi Moo says we might actually get a lot of good players because of our facility. And I mean, frankly, it brought Clea Copper and Natasha Cloud here. There are other things that brought them here, but at the end of the day, the idea of $100 million practice facility is extremely appealing, specifically when you are in a place like Chicago where they're practicing in a place that's older than most of the players. So Mercury team, I'm in your walls for no Celeste picture. You guys are right, though. I will be messaging them personally to say where's the mass Celeste photo. We need that. We deserve that after the loss that we were subjected to tonight. I do believe that we deserve that. Stephen should be here soon, folks. I will become a missionary for the practice facility. I don't think you need to do that. It's all glass. They can see you walk in. You don't need to do that. I feel like we could pull Angel Reese. There is one player that would really help us. Speak of the devil. The MVP, QB1, on and off the field, Stephen Printing-Garner has joined the chat. Stephen, thank God. I haven't breathed for 26 minutes. I'm so thankful to see you.
My apologies for the delay. They
No,
did
it ain't
things a
your
little
fault.
different post game today, so but we here though.
Well, I'm excited to see you. I see your smiling face, so I know your vibes are a little bit better than mine. I ain't gonna lie. I did have a little tear in my eye. I manifested positivity and a Merc W today, and unfortunately, I'm walking away empty-handed with sadness and an L. But that being said, you just came from the post game. What's up? What happened? Who talked to us?
Well, first things first, in case nobody else knew it, Brittany Griner and Natasha Cloud made sure that everybody else knew. They would not be breaking any news. That's not for them to do. They would not hint at it. They would not give any types of clues. So if anybody was asking probing questions, they shot them down immediately, said that that's Diana's responsibility and they would not be taking part for her in any capacity. That set the tone for the for post game. After that, shortly thereafter, Brittany Griner made sure it was understood and known that she's not retiring anytime soon, so that those thoughts could be flushed out. And she said that no time soon, as in there's going to be multiple years of Brittany Griner left on the basketball court. So those can be done away with in addition to that. And I think maybe the other biggest takeaway for me was that Natasha Cloud, who speaks so eloquently. I hope Phoenix media are appreciating just how great Natasha is with the media. I think you can talk about the skills on the court, you could talk about professionalism, but there's that relationship with the media, and Natasha is all W when it comes to that in particular. Speaks so well, does a great job speaking on things on the court, even better job of speaking of things off the court. She was asked about just kind of assessing her career, or assessing her first season, with the Phoenix Mercury, and kind of in that she made sure to let it be known that she signed, knowing that this would be a 2-year process, and that they all understood that free agency after her first season would be where they were really looking to make a stamp on things. Those are her words. And that puts us now where we're assessing this team to where Natasha mentioned that they realized kind of early on that they really truly had something, even though they were kind of maybe a piece or two away from where they really desire to be in terms of filling out their roster. So all of that being considered and looking at things full circle makes a lot of sense for some of the inconsistencies we saw, whether it was injury laden or not. And for this team that has still made the playoffs, to have stamped the first round or has stamped the ticket to the playoffs with about 3.5 weeks, 3 weeks left in the regular season, and for them to have put up the fight that they did, especially in game one against a heavyweight, potentially the best team in the W this season, they're ahead of the curve in terms of if they're looking at it from a 2-year window, especially considering the context of injuries, the uniqueness of this season with the shortest training camp in W history, having an Olympic break, having to ramp back up from that, still not having a full team intact. You had your best players on the floor for, I think it was 11 games or 12 games this season, 12 out of 40.
Yep.
That's not ideal in any capacity. So X Factor, I would say buckle up. It's going to be an intriguing offseason. It's going to be a fun, rumor mill oriented, chaos inducing offseason. There are a ton of high name free agents, impact players on the margins, and everywhere in between. The Mercury are going to be busy. I think obviously everything starts with what Diana Taurasi ultimately decides to do in terms of her career. But shortly thereafter, whether she's here or whether she decides to kind of fade to the back a little bit, there's going to be a lot of major decisions to be made. There's going to be a lot of players that are going to be linked to the Phoenix Mercury, and this team will be better next season. This team will be a lot better next season on paper and on the court. So keep all of those things in mind when assessing this season. Enjoy it for what it was, potentially Diana Taurasi's last season. Salute to one of the best to ever touch a basketball, like I mentioned, as a competitor, as an athlete, at her specific position, and generally speaking. Yeah, buckle up. It's about to be a fun offseason.
Matt Ishbia with one T and a lot of dollar signs is about to be a very busy guy.
Well, I think that's what he signed up for. That dude puts his money where his mouth is and fully expects for anything that he's investing in to be the best at whatever it is that his money is going towards. And you better believe that not only will the Phoenix Suns continue on that trajectory in this upcoming season with Media Day coming shortly, but the Mercury will be following shortly thereafter once they start getting into the new year and looking at the offseason with free agency and all of the fun things that come with that. So stay tuned.
I was just talking before you got here about how insane everyone should expect this free agency to be, whether with the Mercury or with literally any other team in the league, that it's going to be probably unorganized chaos.
That's the one way to put it for sure. We still, for if we're speaking as a whole, we still quite literally don't know what's going on with these expansion teams. We don't know how the
Right.
rosters are going to
No
be spiced
rules.
up. We have no idea what's going on, which
They're doing us dirty. I'm going to be honest. I'm trying to push agendas here and I can't do it if I don't have rules. You know what I mean?
for me, I understand that these things are a process. But these things did not happen. They didn't just like spawn overnight. There has to be organization to everything that's going on. You can't be so full-fledged into this evolution with women's basketball on a professional level and not have your P's and Q's squared away and your T's and I's dotted. It's not good. It's not good. I would hope that we find out something pertaining to the new teams coming in and how players will be kind of delegated and how many players might potentially be cut from every roster. I hope we'll have more clarity to that by the conclusion of the WNBA finals. If I remember correctly, Kathy Engelbert mentioned in All-Star that we might not find out about that until December, which that had everybody in the media room just kind of buzzing like, wait, did she just say December? And then everybody's looking at the calendar like, yeah, I know there's the Olympic break coming up a week later, but that
If
is
anything, they should
literally
have
4
gotten their
months.
shit together during the Olympic break and had the rules decided. Am I wrong? Tell me I'm not.
No, they should have had it done before they even announced that all of these teams would be coming
Especially
into
with
the
all
fold.
these teams, right? If it was just one
Correct.
team, I could kind of get behind them not knowing the rules now. But considering it's going to be three over the next 3 years, like we're going to be having this same conversation over and over again, and they've done it differently every time in the past, which leads me to believe that they are going to do some nonsense and do it differently in the future too. Do you see what I'm saying?
I mean, it feels like it's not connected. at the foundation. So everything to kind of ensue from it can't be anything more than or less than that, rather. So that remains to be seen. Didn't mean to go off on a tangent and off topic, but
Oh yeah,
if we're
my
speaking
bad,
about
guys.
free agency and we're talking about everything that's going to come with that, we can't help but speak to that because we don't even know what the other half of the Mercury roster is going to be. We know who at least the top 5 will be. It's contingent on 6, depending on what Diana Taurasi decides to do with her career. But outside of that, with every roster, outside of your top 6 players, everything is just very much a gray area right now. Like I said, that's a whole nother thing to dive into, but yes, I digress.
Back to the game. I
Yes.
got a question because, frankly, I was having a conniption during the game, and I've been waiting for you to get here because I wanted to complain about something, and but I didn't want to do it without you here because, frankly, I knew that if I wasn't supposed to be complaining about it, you would correct me, and I appreciate that about you. But to me, this was extremely inconsistent officiating, and I personally think that the inconsistent officiating should have been left in the regular season. And when you get to the playoffs, I've been watching these girls play all week, and I don't mean to call them girls in a degrading way at all. I just mean I've been watching the girls scrap, you know what I mean? And they've been playing physical all week long. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. And so to get to this game and for there to be some of the ticky-tack fouls that there were was pretty frustrating as a Mercury fan. This is why I was waiting for him to be here, y'all.
I definitely get it. 23 or 27 for Minnesota in the game from the free throw line, 10 for 14 for the Phoenix Mercury. So we've talked about all season that Brittany Griner quite literally can't be guarded without being fouled. Just off of stature alone, there's only like 4 players across the W that can be in her spectrum that play her position. None of those 4 players were in this series in any capacity. I know she had a struggle. She had a struggle getting rhythm and making shots and fighting for her spots in game 1. She got fouled a handful of times in game 1. They just did not get called. I feel like it took 4 or 5 steps into the extreme direction in game 2. Now she finished with 24 points, but she could have easily had 30 to 35 if the fouls that should have been called were called. And you look at that discrepancy, 10 for 14 versus 23 for 27. Minnesota made more free throws than the Phoenix Mercury even took in the game. And if we're looking at these teams for what they showed that they were over a 40-game regular season, regardless of who was injured, regardless of who was available, regardless of before trade deadline or after the trade deadline, one team was more aggressive in terms of getting downhill, in terms of having an imposing figure that's playing in the paint, in addition to these 2 players that get downhill at an elite level. And the way that this game was officiated, you would think that that was the Minnesota Lynx that had that imposing figure in the paint, as well as multiple guards that are getting downhill first, second, and third before they look at shooting the basketball from the perimeter. I'm not saying that the Mercury should have been gifted free throws. I'm saying they definitely had to earn their way there, but they weren't just selling for shots this entire series. Like in any capacity, their shot profile was very much what they needed for it to be in terms of them attempting to get to the paint and attempting to work to the cup and shoot from the close range around the basket, where a lot of contact typically happens when you're driving past your initial defender and you're getting past them with relative ease on consistency. Somebody has to help, and they weren't getting wide open layups. Otherwise, this series would look a lot different if that was the case. So that discrepancy at the free throw line is wild. Brittany Griner had one quick comment to make sure she didn't get fined about it, but she made sure it was known that she understood and recognized that on the box score, they shot a whole lot more free throws than the Phoenix Mercury even took in the game. That's a competitive disadvantage. And to your point, Erika, when you're talking about officiating, if you're on this stage where the stakes are as high as they can possibly get, players' legacies are on the line, coaches' legacies are on the line, players and coaches' respective jobs are on the line.
Jobs, right?
Like
Like,
that, the accountability bar has to be as astronomically high as it possibly can be. This is not a ground for experimenting and seeing what somebody can do. Officiating has to catch up with the game. It just has to. And that's not specifically for this
this
Mercury
game.
Lynx
Yep.
series or this Mercury Lynx game, let alone a series. This is generally speaking for the entire W. It has to be better. It has to be better.
I don't like to like harp on it too much on the show. Y'all know I love to yap about it on the X, but that's a very unserious app. This is a serious show, you guys. And the serious part of me doesn't like to complain, but at the same time, it has been a consistent issue. The only thing consistent about the officiating has been its inconsistency.
That's definitely what it felt like in pockets. And you could tell it weighed on the players as well as the coaches. Again, speaking to the Mercury and external of Phoenix in the playoffs. And, it's unfortunate. Obviously, these officials have a job to do. Obviously, their job is not easy to do. So you can't acknowledge, the inconsistencies without acknowledging how hard the job is. Nonetheless, it's also hard to be a basketball player. And it's even harder to be a basketball player or a coach when things out of your control are not, at the requisite level that they need to be for you to be able to do your job to the best of your abilities. I don't want to make excuses or anything like that. The Mercury got outplayed. They got out executed this series. They lost to the better team through and through, top to bottom and everywhere in between. That thing being said, though, you have to have the consistency from the officiating. I even think Minnesota missed out on calls that they maybe should have gotten. Obviously, they had made up for by calls that happened over the course of the game, but there were a handful of calls where Napheesa got hit and clearly was fouled and it didn't get called. Same thing with Kayla McBride a handful of times as well. This is very much both ways. We're not speaking as homers in any capacity. And that's why I keep making sure to emphasize that generally speaking, the officiating has to catch up with the skill development, the pace, the tempo, and the general level of basketball that's being played on the women's side of things. Point blank, period. That's one of the biggest takeaways from this season as a whole.
Well, let's go back to the game before we skedaddle for the evening. It's getting late. I know everybody's got things to do. I gave my thoughts on this game. The turnovers hurt. The out rebounding wasn't the story of the night, and I refuse to let that be the narrative about this game, period. But if you have a few takeaways from this game, and not necessarily what the Mercury did wrong, but what went wrong for the Mercury.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I was consistent in harping on was that the Mercury would have to find a way to get stops and get compile stops across multiple pockets of the game. I made sure to always preface the Mercury needing to get stops with Minnesota being one of the best offensive teams in the W. They might not be the best in terms of pure scoring numbers, but the methods in which they go about scoring always breed for success when they need it most and success whenever an opponent might be slipping on the defensive end of the floor. The way they move the basketball and have players move it in succession with it within their spacing principles and templates, playing with tempo, being able to use their shooters in multiple ways, both as screeners and to be screened for, to create mismatches, force switches, trigger all types of overreactions from a defense. Their offense is a rhythmic harmony at times, and it felt like that a whole lot today. That puts a demand on the defense to, if you do a solid job for one quarter, even a half, like the Phoenix Mercury did in the first half, that's just not going to be enough because you have to put together two halves to beat this team. And to my point, in the first half, the Phoenix Mercury did a solid job defending. I feel like some of the baskets that Minnesota was able to get in the first half stem from Mercury turnovers late towards the first half finishing. But in that second half, things kind of turned for the worse because that's the demand, that's the toll, and that's the accountability that Minnesota holds an opponent to. If you defend us solid for one half, that's cool, but you still have to do it for another 20 minutes. And if you can't do that, If you do it for 16 or 15 or even 12 or 10, that's just not going to be enough on most nights. They have an identity. They stick to it. They play to it. And that's a large reason why this team might end up representing the Western Conference in the WNBA Finals when it's all said and done. And I would not be surprised if they go on to beat the Connecticut Sun in convincing fashion. Obviously, X Factor understands just how good and how solid of a team and identity that Connecticut is. This is going to very much be a clashing of styles. And to take the boxing adage, matchups make fights. That's very much what this second round matchup between both teams is going to be, between Connecticut and Minnesota, as well as New York and Las Vegas. But the one that we're speaking to with the Minnesota Lynx being involved, ooh, I hope everybody appreciates the basketball is going to take place.
Mm-hmm. Because ever since yesterday, and I really saw the bracket, visualized, I just want to say I'm mad because we need to get to a point within the league where there are enough teams to separate the Eastern and Western Conference because frankly, the fact that we have to have this Vegas Liberty rematch in the semis is, to put it lightly, making me very upset. And so I really would like to see the Eastern and Western conferences actually separated within the playoffs, because right now this whole 1 through 8 nonsense, listen, I get it. It makes for simpler standings, and it would be tough to separate it with just the 12 teams, but it can't go on like this. We are deserving of that finals rematch if that's where it was to be headed. And the fact that we were robbed of that, and the fact that there's 2 Western Conference teams and 2 Eastern Conference teams and they're not playing each other, sick work.
Yeah, it's a little different. I do think that's something that the W, in addition to the long laundry list of other things that we've already spoken to, is something that might potentially come with the expansion of the league, with these teams coming in over the next 3 to 4 years. I also think that the league will adopt in some capacity a play-in tournament style of integrating the final 2 seeds once they get to that conference type of scenario potentially, just to add more intrigue, to add a little bit more flavor, add a little bit more value to these games over the course of the regular season. So big changes coming with the W. For everybody that's just now tapping in, welcome. For everybody that's been here, continue to enjoy the brand that you understood it to be, but also acknowledge it for the evolution that's to come with the multitude of stars and et cetera, that will be coming through the W. And yeah, things are going to get fun. Things are about to get a lot of fun.
Well, we've got a lot, there's a lot going to happen over the next couple of weeks with the Mercury. We're going to get exit interviews, got a lot to talk about over on this show. I'm sure you're going to be seeing our faces a few more times before the end of the year. So don't get too comfortable with not seeing our faces, okay? That being said, though, I want to let you take the floor because I talked so much at the beginning about what I saw with the turnovers and, just missed shots. And like you said, not getting to the free throw line when they needed to. How could have the Mercury turned this series around in game 2 tonight?
Starts with defense for me. I know it's a tall task, but that's the only way to survive on this level when you get to the WNBA playoffs. You have to be able to get stops when you need them to, and you need to be able to compile them for the impact that your offense can potentially have to be that. I think they did enough of it in game 1. The way they defended the last 2.5 quarters was exactly what they needed for a full 4 to beat this Minnesota Lynx team. They showed that they could do it for 2.5, but they didn't show that they could do it for more than that in this series. And that's ultimately what I was mentioning what it would come down to. Obviously, defense and rebounding. It was just a tough matchup for the Mercury in the first round. I did feel like there were avenues and outlets for them to win this series. I didn't pick them to win this series. If you read my preview on GoPHNX, and I explained why I didn't, but I also explained those avenues that I'm speaking to. We saw a lot of that in game 1, just didn't see enough of it in game 2. And I think that Napheesa Collier, for all the people that were speaking as if she wasn't one of the 2 best players in the W this season, got a front row seat if they decided to pay attention to it the way that they should, of just why she is that. And her her being one of the best players in the W looks different than any one of the other players that is considered for that type of crown. She's tough. She is just tough. The way she leverages all of her skills and all of her dynamics on the floor, and the way that her team plays in response to that as well, it's just different. It's just different. And that's a team that's very much on their way to doing something special this season. And please continue to watch it, because this is a special time, special transition. And you heard it here first. The Mercury will definitely be back in those circles come next season. So enjoy watching without your team that you're rooting for, that you invest in being directly involved, because this will be your little rest period, because next season you'll be full-fledgedly right back in the mix with everybody else. So enjoy it.
I was just going to say that, like, we get 24 hours to mourn, and then we move on, pick a new team, pull for them in the playoffs. And I mean, quite literally, the W season is going to start back up before we even realized it was over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, college basketball, we talked about.
You already know.
About 7 weeks ago, 7 weeks away, less than that. It's time. It's that time.
I saw future #1 draft pick Malaysia Fulwiley practicing today, and I was like, "Ooh, boy, we are almost so back, brothers."
There you go.
But we don't have a schedule for next week just yet, but I know we're going to make something happen. So be on the lookout for that over on our Twitter at @PHNX_Mercury. But before I go, I'm going to let Stephen tell us anything else he has to tell us and tell us where to find him.
I got nothing else. It's been a fun season. It's been a very busy season, covering 2 teams in a full-time capacity. It's work, but it's definitely exactly what I desired. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to doing more of it for seasons to come. No work coming in the immediate future. We'll definitely have some news coming over the next handful of days, but until then, you can find me on Twitter at StayTrueS.3. And yeah, we'll definitely be recording sometime soon. Exit interviews coming up. Not sure exactly when. I'm sure we might know by the end of tonight, if not tomorrow morning, when that might be taking place. It'll probably be on Friday, but I'll leave that for Mercury PR to inform us and for us to inform y'all shortly thereafter. I don't want to get nobody's hopes up, but yeah, more news to come. And we appreciate y'all tapping in with us this entire season. It's been a great season of growth for us, as it's been for the W. Let's continue to do that. Let's continue to make our space unique from others. And yeah, let's keep being great.
Like Stephen said, big shouts to all of y'all for joining us this season. I saw a comment earlier, I think it was from Gringo Billy, that says they miss NPR Erika. I'll be honest, I do not. You guys should be super happy that I have raised my volume from very quiet to very loud, because I don't think Stephen would have been like super happy if he had to bring the amposity that I've brought every week, right?
Yeah.
So I'll leave it to myself to be loud and annoying. And until the next time we see you guys, which will probably be next week, you can follow me over on Twitter at Erika Lee Day, or you can follow us both together over on the PHNX_Mercury, where trust and believe, the memes aren't done. Just because the season's over doesn't mean I'm done tweeting. So y'all have a lot of fun reviewing those tweets, and we will see you guys very, very soon.
We all silly like the mayor.